Alright, so the new Memory of Chaos has officially released for version 1.1 of Honkai Star Rail, and a lot of people are having issues with the current rotation. Whether it's because of the Mara-Struck enemies who are able to revive themselves, or the disciples who can heal himself, or maybe even the deer fight that just obliterates your entire team, this video should include some ways to counter these enemy lineups, as well as providing some in-depth knowledge on how these opponents work. Okay, so first, let's start with the elephant in the room, and that is going to be the Mara-Struck enemies. The disciples of Sanctus Medicus are able to summon these Mara-Struck enemies every so often onto the battlefield. These Mara-Struck soldiers are able to revive themselves upon death, meaning you will have to kill them twice. And as long as there are Mara-Struck soldiers in play, the shapeshifter is able to self-heal every time it attacks. Now, do keep in mind that this is a buff on the enemy, and you are able to remove this buff with Pela's skill ability, making her extremely viable to incorporate into your team comp, and someone I would definitely recommend you bring into the party. Even if you don't have her fully invested, and trust me, my Pela is not super invested either. I'm literally just running whatever I can just to make sure that I can apply the debuff, which is the defense down for her ultimate, and strip the enemy's buff with their E ability, which is guaranteed. Her skill ability is still 100% buff removal from the enemy. The only other ways you're able to remove buffs from the enemy, as far as I know, would be with Pela, Locha, and there's also a battle pass hunt light cone. If you guys ended up buying the battle pass and you ended up getting that, you could also throw that on your hunt character if you don't want to bring Pela into the party with you against these Mara-Struck enemies. But yeah, I would recommend sticking with Pela for now as a guaranteed option. So going up against the shapeshifter, you do have some options here on how you'd like to approach the fight. You can either A, kill the soldiers the shapeshifter summons, which will prevent him from healing. Now, do keep in mind that these soldiers will revive unless you do remove their buff first. Or option B, which is what I've been doing and what's been working for me, and that's just hyper focusing the main unit, aka the shapeshifter, the boss, whoever it might be. As long as I personally remove the shapeshifter's buff from his self-heal and ignore the adds that do get summoned, essentially what I'm trying to say is just tanking through their damage. Hopefully you have like a Japard, fire main character, Natasha to give you some sustain and withstand their damage. Then they will also be removed from combat the moment the final blow is dealt to the shapeshifter, and you don't have to worry about actually killing them, saving you a little bit of time in the long run and helping you claim more stars in the Memory of Chaos. Because remember, Memory of Chaos is a time crunch. It's basically it's a race against the clock, right? If you want to get more stars to get more of those resources, stellar jades, credits, you want to make sure you're clearing as fast as humanly possible. Now, if you don't have enough sustain to withstand all of their attacks, I do recommend taking the soldiers out one by one as a more safer play. And now, speaking of going ham and just hyper focusing on the boss for the win, I want to direct this attention over to the deer now, the second enemy that a lot of people are having difficulties with and having struggles with. Okay, so this beast is one of the newest additions into the Memory of Chaos that a lot of players seem to be having difficulties with, including myself the first time I actually fought it. During this fight, there are branches that get summoned by the deer you'll want to watch out for, and each one does something different. So the bluish branch, which is called the Twig of Wintry Wind, will be able to outrage one of your characters, essentially putting a debuff on one of your characters and making them only able to basic attack a random enemy for X amount of turns. The goldish looking branch, which is called the Twig of Marple Leaf, will be able to act as a buffer for the deer, as well as countering any attacks made towards it. We have Twig of Glorious Blooms, which is going to be the healer for the enemy team, so you want to make sure you prioritize that. And then last but not least, we have the branch that is called the Twig of Lavish Fruits, but we'll get more into that a little bit later once we start talking about phase 2. Alright, so in the first phase of the deer fight, if you're not rocking enough AoE damage, aka Qingque, Herda, or hell even like Zila with their quick attacks, the thing that has worked for me, believe it or not, has been to just ignore the branches altogether and solo focus on the boss alone. I kid you not, I've actually lost to the deer because I tried killing the branches one by one while the deer just kept resummoning them until I inevitably died. Now, having characters like Fire Trailblazer in your party will work wonders because they essentially taunt the branches, the Twig of Wintry Wind. making them the only target of their debuff and allowing your main DPS units to actually focus on the deer stress-free. Do keep in mind, you are able to cleanse these debuffs with, say, like Natasha or March 7th off of the Trailblazer or whichever party member that has fallen victim. But do keep in mind that if there are multiple debuffs, aka like 2 stacks of that same effect, pretty much 2 stacks of Outrage, you will only be able to cleanse 1 stack and you'll have to wait until the other stack expires, or double cleanse is what I'm trying to say here. Moving on to phase 2 of the deer fight, things start to get a little bit more interesting. The deer will start summoning 2 branches at a time, starting with one that has a fruit on it. Now, this is going to be very important because when this branch yielding 1 fruit grows another one, totaling 2 fruit, the deer will be unleashing a huge AoE attack onto your team, basically a team wipe. Now, there are 2 ways to counter this. The easiest solution would just be to kill the fruit branch, right? Make it so you can't actually give that buff to the boss and allow him to do that AoE attack. Easier said than done, because if you're not able to dish out enough damage in time, due to whatever reason it might be, my second best solution, and something that's been working with me because I wasn't able to dish out enough damage to kill this branch, would be just surviving the AoE blast. So simply leveling up my character's headpiece for my relic up to like 9. That's it. Very simple, like a 4-star, level it up to 9. And as long as I'm surviving, I'm able to heal myself back up to full with Natasha. The fight becomes so much more easier by just ignoring the branches, even in phase 2, allowing that AoE attack to go off. I full heal with Natasha, and I still hyper focus on the boss. So just a quick little TLDR for the second phase of the deer fight. Since things can get pretty hectic with all the constant summons, I would highly recommend hyper focusing on the boss fight, ignoring the ads, taunting with Trailblazer, fire main character, so your DPS don't accidentally get debuffed, and then saving your AoE heal either with Natasha or Bailu until after the big AoE attack, and then you should be good to go. The only silver lining is that after the AoE attack, the branches will disappear before the boss does eventually resummon them, giving you a little bit of time to breathe. Also, after this AoE blast does go off, the deer will be gaining a buff called Hardy Leaf Sheath. It increases his defense, and the toughness bar above his HP bar cannot be reduced. I think this lasts for 2 turns, so do keep in mind if you are trying to burst him down, he does gain a buff after that. All right, so now since we've discussed the 2 main enemies that I've heard were causing issues, I want to briefly talk about team comps for different floors and characters you could possibly throw in. We're going to talk about probably like the first couple of stages. All right, so let's start with stage 1 here against the Lieutenant and the Guardian Shadow. Now, obviously, a lot of these enemies are already weak to physical and quantum, meaning that your Su Sheng, Clara, your Zila, even Xing Shui, the erudition gotcha girl, these are all great characters to throw into your team comp and great damage dealers to actually get that first half done. Now, if you don't have any of those characters, but you so happen to roll on Silverwolf, you are able to bend the rules just a little bit. So say, for example, you have her and you also have Yen Qing, right? Your main DPS character. You could run Yen Qing with Pela, Silverwolf, and say like a March or a Japard, preferably. That's 3 ice, 1 quantum. Now, because this person's already ice, you're good to go. The Guardian Shadow is already weak to quantum, which means when you apply that weakness application from silver, you are 100% guaranteeing an ice weakness, allowing your DPS character to kind of do work. That's pretty much how I've been able to manipulate this current Memory of Chaos and last Memory of Chaos for the later stages with the help of Silverwolf, a very good character to bring into your team comp. Second half over here against the Trampler and the Disciples of Sanctus Medicus. Obviously, I would recommend bringing a wind type DPS. We only have, I think, 2 of them in the game, if we're not counting Brawny. We have Sampo and we have Don Hung, Mr. Daniel. I would recommend bringing one of them. But yet again, you are able to manipulate this in your favor if you so wish, if you have silver and if you want to bring in a different character because you don't have him leveled up, don't have Sampo. You can use her to your benefit. Keep that in mind. So if I'm talking about what kind of team comps I'm going to run, this is my team comp up here. Su Sheng is my main damage source against the first half. and Daniel on the second half against these guys. Of course, remembering to bring in Pela because you are going up against the shapeshifter who is able to summon adds and able to self-heal if those adds are up, but just removing his buff is good enough. You can Giga Focus and Hyper Focus him and ignore the summons that he creates. Quickly moving over to stage 2 here, I am going heavy on the AoE attack here, so lightning or fire if you so happen to have like a well-built Himeko or a hook or a Serval. I'm using Jing Yuan here in this example. I would bring Jing Yuan against the Decaying Shadow and against the Aurumaton Grizzly. Do keep in mind this Grizzly does summon little bombs, so you want to make sure you are able to kill them before they do a big amount of splash damage onto your team. So AoE, I'm bringing Jing Yuan for the lightning. Against Japard, I am bringing Su Sheng as my main damage source here, and Japard is the only one who's weak to physical, but thanks to Silverwolf, I am able to apply a physical weakness onto the Direwolf here, which allows my DPS to actually dish out more damage. All right, moving on to stage 3 here, we have 2 enemies who are weak against Quantum, so my first recommendations would be bringing in your Zila or bringing in a Xing Shui, the Erudition Gotcha Girl. Those 2 characters would be phenomenal here. If you don't have them, my second best would say an AoE lightning character like Serval or Jing Yuan. So the first enemy is not weak to lightning. However, the second enemy is our main problem and what we have to worry about and focus on. The first guy, as long as you're able to break that shield with fire main character and you have like someone to sustain yourself and self-heal, you should be fine. You should be good to go against him. Jing Yuan or Serval should be perfect for this. Against the Frigid Prowler now this is where things get ugly. So he does summon units, and these units who attack you will push your characters back in terms of like action order. But if you don't kill these soldiers that get summoned and he absorbs them, he will be getting a damage increase and he could potentially one-shot one of your characters. Now, if you are successful in killing these soldiers before he does his absorption phase, he loses like 50% defense reduction, allowing you to dish out a hell of a lot more damage against him, making the fight a lot easier. So I would recommend killing the units, not breaking his shield, because if you kill the units and break his shield before he does the absorption, the suck phase, then he will just get back up. His toughness bar goes all the way back up. He resummons, and then he does an AoE ice attack, and then it starts all over again. So you want to make sure you kill the adds, don't break him, let him attack, let him get the defense reduction, and then you break his shield and dish out a lot of damage. If you do it the other way, where you kill the adds, break his shield, he'll get up, he'll summon the adds, do an AoE attack, and then you kill the adds again, break his shield, he gets up, summon the adds, does an AoE attack, he never gets that defense reduction. So always keep that in mind. Allow him to attack you, try to absorb, but nothing's there, and then he'll get that defense reduction. You're good to go. As for the second half here, I am able to abuse Su Sheng with Silverwolf again, just to manipulate the weakness break in my favor. So I am comboing with Pela and Japard. Pela is always going to be the guaranteed against the shapeshifter because of his debuff, so always make sure you're bringing her just to make this fight a little bit easier and less of a hassle. And with double ice, quantum, and physical, I do have a 50-50% chance of applying either quantum or physical. Either or is fine with me as long as the shield is broken for the enemy. My Su Sheng can get in there and start doing some work. But if you do have a Yanqing, this is a great Yanqing floor because they are both already weak to ice. And if you have a Welt, I mean, they're all both weak to quantum, or imaginary, apologies, imaginary as well. All right, let's quickly move over to stage 4 here, and I want to briefly mention the Aurumaton Gatekeeper. This guy is obnoxious, and I believe a lot of people end up hating him because he is able to imprison your teammates and delaying their action. Every time you attack him, I believe it's 3 times, he will be going into the sanction mode where his toughness bar, aka his shield break, cannot be affected. So you have to wait this out, and then you can continue to try and do damage. Now, he does summon these fish every time he does enter the sanction mode, which is good because if you focus the fish, which I would recommend, every time it explodes, it's doing AoE damage, but it's also applying a 30% defense reduction onto the Aurumaton Gatekeeper, allowing you to dish out more damage to him and kill him a lot quicker. So whenever he does go into the sanction mode, kill the fish, let it blow up, And it stacks as well. So if he summons 2 fish, that's 60% defense down. If he summons 4 fish, you get the point, right? 120. You can keep stacking these debuffs onto him, and I believe it lasts 2 turns. And that should allow you to go through the fight a lot smoother. Now, Kafka on the second half, if you guys have played Simulated Universe World 5, everyone should know how Kafka works by now. She applies debuffs to you, so bringing a character like Natasha to cleanse is very advisable. If you don't want to bring Natasha for whatever reason, you still have March. March 7th also has a cleanse. Bring in some damage dealers like Clara, because she does do a lot of attacks, so Clara could keep countering, break her shield. Mr. Daniel, Sampo's really great as well for breaking shields. Su Shang, all good characters. You even have Waltz, and it'll be good against the other enemy as well, the Trampler. Stage 5, we're hitting some repeats here. Silvermane Lieutenant, Blaze Out of Space. We've already dealt with them on previous floors. The Shapeshifter is back, aka bring Pela. We also have the Searing Prowler, who can enter a buff state of Mania, increasing his speed and his attack. So having Pela on the second half, not just for the Shapeshifter, but also for the Searing Prowler being able to remove his buff, is advisable. Really strong against that second half. Would recommend bringing her. And last but not least, we have Stage 6, first half, the Direwolf and the Searing Prowler. We already know how to deal with them, aka bring Pela, remove that Mania buff. It'll help you out a lot. And then the Abundant Deer on second half with the Gatekeeper as well. We did mention how to deal with him and how to counter him, aka just kill these fish, allow the fish to apply that minus 30% defense reduction on him, and you should be good to go. The Deer, we mentioned at the start of the video how to deal with him. Pretty much ignore the branches he summons, Giga Focus him, and you should be good to go. Advisable bringing in Fire main character, so Fire main character can taunt the Twigs, and the Twigs won't actually outrage your main DPS unit, making you do less damage and attacking the wrong things that you don't want to attack. So Fire main character, very clutch there. If you don't want to bring Fire main character on second half for whatever reason, bringing a cleanser like Natasha or March 7th is my second best option. All right, and that's going to conclude this short little Memory of Chaos guide. I hope that it was a short video. I just wanted to briefly try to mention the 2 main units, which is the Shapeshifter and the Deer that people are having issues with. Team comps that I ran to go through the Memory of Chaos the first couple of stages. And some small little things on how to counter other certain bosses and stuff like that. Apologies if I sound a little bit sick. I am feeling a bit under the weather as of the time of me recording this. There are 9 days left of the Memory of Chaos as well, so I do plan on trying to climb up. I should be able to beat stage 8 either in a day or 2. So if you guys want to jump over to my Twitch stream, end up watching that happen live, feel free. I do stream every single day, and if there were any other questions in team comps or just something you want to ask in general that I did not cover in this video, please do join the Twitch stream. Ask me there. I'll be happy to answer you, or leave a comment down below in the comment section, and hopefully I'll be able to get to you as well. If you guys want to see we talk about Forgotten Halls, some of the first 15 stages against certain enemies like Branya, Svarog, Cocolia, things like that, let me know as well. I don't mind doing a short little like discussion talking about them and team comps I've used, and you know, things, characters or enemies I prioritized, whatever. Yeah, let me know. Hopefully this video was helpful or informative to anyone out there. Thank you guys very much for watching. Best of luck. I'll catch you guys in the next one.